In the year that I've been experimenting with sourdough, no recipe has been easier than sourdough naan bread. Not only is it super easy, you don't need any special equipment like a banneton or a Dutch oven, just a bowl, something to roll the dough out with, and a skillet. It's that easy. And today I will show you exactly how I make this. I started my sourdough starter in December of 2021. I was completely intrigued with the idea that you could make bread that tastes amazing with just flour, water, and salt, which are the ingredients to pretty much all the beautiful artisan sourdough loaf breads that you see. It's just crazy to me that it could be that simple, but it really is. The specialness of the bread comes from the sourdough starter and the bulk fermentation process. Basically, you put time and love into the bread and it makes it taste better than any bread you have eaten. And it's actually better for you because it's easier on your digestive system. That's the big draw towards sourdough bread, and it's why there's been such a big movement towards it. Sourdough is simply fermented flour, and all that means is that you allow the flour to build up enough good bacteria from the air that it kills any bad bacteria, which ends up giving it that tangy taste we're all kind of familiar with from fermented foods. Fermented foods like sour cream, sauerkraut, and among our favorite, wine. Now let's get right into it. I'm Patrina and this is my channel, Homegrown Florida. If you could please hit the like and subscribe button, that would help me out a lot. You may not be familiar with naan bread, but it's an Indian flatbread. It reminds me a lot of pita bread. But it's great for more than just Indian food. We use our naan for lots of things like chicken salad stuffed pitas, pork and poblano tacos, and my absolute favorite way to eat it, Caesar salad pizza. Or really any pizza for that matter. It's the perfect size for an individual sized portion. And the sourdough flavor takes it to like a whole nother level. I normally don't eat pizza for the taste of the dough. I'm more about the toppings and the cheese. I'm that person that doesn't eat the crust of my pizza. That is until I started making naan pizza from sourdough. I totally eat this bread plain or dipped in a little bit of olive oil, and it's basically its own meal. It's that good. Make sure to stay to the end. I'm going to show you the recipe for my Caesar salad pizza. So we start the recipe by weighing out the ingredients. 125 grams of your sourdough starter at its peak. Then 60 grams of plain Greek yogurt. 15 grams of olive oil. 120 grams of your milk of choice. So you can use almond milk, oat milk, or just regular cow milk. 7 grams of salt. 300 grams of all-purpose flour. Now we mix all that together and knead it for just a couple minutes until the flour is completely absorbed. You'll probably notice that my measurements from the scale are a little bit above the amounts that I said, and being off a little bit shouldn't affect the dough. I used to be incredibly precise, but I've learned that both sourdough breads are very forgiving. I think it all works out during the bulk fermentation process. And bulk fermentation is just a fancy phrase for, it means that you just leave your dough on the counter covered with a towel for a long period of time. I always start my dough in the evening and allow it to sit out overnight while I sleep. That's usually anywhere from 8 to 12 hours, depending on how cold your kitchen is or how long you sleep. My house stays above 70 degrees, so mine almost always takes about 10 hours. If for some reason you're not able to cook it in the morning, just stick it in the bowl in the fridge when you wake up, and it can hang out there for a couple days if needed. Just remember to allow it to come to room temperature when you take it out, since that will make it a lot easier to roll out. When I'm ready to make my naan, I remove the dough from the bowl and I shape it a little bit into a ball. I'll link the recipe in the description, but the recipe says that you can make 7 pieces. I find that the pieces are too small, so I make 4. Roll each of the 4 pieces in your hand to form a small seamless ball. If you have time, let the rolls rest on the counter for 20 or 30 minutes. This usually makes them easier to roll out since the gluten in the bread gets tight when you start shaping it. Resting it allows it to relax and it's easier to manipulate. When it's rested, heat a skillet or cast iron pan to medium-high heat. My stove runs pretty hot, so I normally start with medium and work my way up from there, just to the point where the bread starts to brown quickly when I place it on the pan. It only takes about 2 minutes per side at the right temperature. Roll each ball out pretty thin. Don't use flour. I know many recipes allow for flour to be used to help the dough from sticking to the rolling pin or the counter, but flour at this point would cause it to burn on the stove. So you don't want to use that in the recipe. Just keep moving the dough and flipping it if it gets too sticky. The thinner you get it, the better it will be. The bread puffs up when it cooks, so it tends to get thicker by the time it's done cooking. Place the rolled out dough in the preheated hot pan. If you use a cast iron, all it needs to be is pre-seasoned. If you're using a non-stick skillet, make sure it is completely dry. No oil or sprays. You are basically dry roasting the bread at a high heat. Wait until you see the bubbles forming on the top of the bread before checking the other side. Don't move the bread or fuss with it, just wait till you see those bubbles. When you flip it over, you will see the cool brown and white design. This is the bottom of the naan bread. Now, this is the fun part. If you have rolled your dough thin enough, your dough will puff up. Mine puffed a little, but I have had other times when it basically becomes like a giant puffball. That's when you know to flip it. Don't be deflated, pun intended. If it doesn't inflate, it will still be amazing. Just keep trying to roll it out thinner. The top will have those cool browning spots on the bubble portions. Now they're starting to resemble the naan bread that you would buy in the grocery store for $5 to $7 a package, which normally just has 2 pieces in it. Plus, yours will have an amazing flavor that pales in comparison to the store-bought stuff. Normally, when I make naan bread, I make 3 to 4 times the recipe, so I'm doing a big batch all at once. I just allow them to cool on the counter for about 30 minutes, and then I place them in plastic bags with parchment or wax paper between them, and then I put them in my freezer. When we want to use one for pizza night, I pull them out in the morning, let them defrost, but you can also actually heat them from frozen straight into the oven if you prefer. Once they have defrosted, I toss them in the oven at 400 degrees for just 5 minutes. While the naan is heating up, I prepare the toppings. Tonight, I'm going to be making Caesar salad pizza, which is an all-vegetarian pizza. Instead of marinara or pesto, I'm going to use a garlic-infused oil to brush on the bread. Then I'm topping it with mozzarella cheese. Next, I'll add my veggies, which are sautéed mushrooms and raw tomatoes. Then I just sprinkle on some Parmesan on top of all of that. Now I'll put the whole pizza back in the oven for another 5 minutes straight on the rack. And then I usually put a baking sheet underneath in case any of the cheese falls. That way I'm not having to clean out my oven. You just want to leave it in there long enough for the cheese to melt and the bottom of the bread to just get a little bit more crispy so it doesn't bend. The last step is to make the dressing for the salad, which is just mayo, garlic, vinegar, and Parmesan, and of course, a lot of black pepper. Then I just toss my sliced up romaine into the dressing and then add it to the pizza top once it comes out of the oven. It's the fastest pizza you will ever make and it tastes amazing. If you are intrigued with the idea of salad on top of your pizza, I will leave the recipe for this Caesar salad pizza down in the description. It's just so good. I'm not sure you will ever eat pizza the same way. But be prepared, it is pretty garlic heavy, very garlic forward. Check out this video here on how to make your own sourdough starter.